Have you heard about the women's political party called Gabriela? What about the award given to the outstanding wives of government leaders called the Order of Gabriela Silang? Or maybe you're into astronomy and you've heard about the minor planet named 7026 Gabriela Silang. We've named so many things after her, but what do we actually know about the fierce Ilocano warrior? That's why today, we'll be learning all about Gabriela Silang and how she became immortalized as a feminist Filipina icon. When it comes to fierce Filipinas, we can't skip talking about the one and only Gabriela Silang. Growing up, Gabriela came from a diverse background. She was born in 1731 in Ilocos Sur to a Spanish Ilocano mestizo father and an indigenous Itneg mother. While little is known about Gabriela's parents, we do know that her mother chose to remain part of her indigenous religion, which must have been difficult considering all the effort the Spaniards put into trying to convert all the natives into Christians. Maybe this is where Gabriela got her courage and bravery from. Aside from that, Gabriela was also known for her sympathy for the poor. She was a charitable girl who always made sure to give to the less fortunate. As a child, Gabriela also stayed in her mother's village and learned all about her Itneg culture. Later on, when her parents separated, she stayed with her father, whose only plan for her was to marry her off to a rich man. Gabriela was not alone in this. At the time, countless other young women were raised with the sole purpose of marrying someone rich. Their parents believed this was the only way their daughters could succeed in life. By the time she was 20 years old, this plan came to fruition. Gabriela was married to a rich widower who died only a few years after their wedding, leaving her with no husband but with plenty of wealth and riches. This was when she met the man who would eventually become the love of her life, a man she would choose for herself, not one her father picked out for her. Though she had many suitors, Gabriela gave her heart to the one and only Diego Silang. For one thing, he was much closer to her age than her first husband. More than that, Diego was intelligent, charismatic, and with a gift for language. The two were the perfect pair. Diego worked as a messenger for a local priest. He spent his days traveling back and forth from Ilocos to Manila. During these adventures, Diego began learning more and more about the injustices and oppressions being done by the Spaniards. Slowly but surely, he started having ideas about self-governance. Diego envisioned an Ilocos that was independent from colonial rule, and Gabriela was right there beside him. While the Silangs were having these revolutionary ideas, there was a war going on thousands of miles away in Europe. The 7 Years' War saw the British and the Spanish fighting, and each nation's colonies eventually became involved. In 1762, the British sailed to Manila to try to replace Spain as the colonial power. To get support from the Filipinos, the British promised reform for the natives who would join their ranks. Diego was among these who agreed. While in retrospect, this might not have been the wisest decision, it did give Diego the power and opportunity to free Ilocos from the Spanish. One of the Silang's primary grievances lay with the principales, the wealthy native tax collectors who worked for the Spaniards. While Filipinos themselves, the principales often flaunted their power and used it to exploit their fellow countrymen. Gabriela and Diego raised the slogan, "Wrest power from the principales and restore it to the people." While Gabriela and Diego were relatively wealthy themselves, they could not stand for the injustices being done to their fellow Ilocanos. More and more Ilocanos with the same sentiments started joining their ranks. But it was not just the Ilocanos. Using her family ties, Gabriela was able to draw in Itneg warriors from the mountains. In a country where indigenous people are still marginalized to this day, the way Gabriela contributed to the Itneg people's revolutionary spirit was groundbreaking. With a battalion of fighters from all over the Ilocos region, Gabriela and Diego Silang defeated the Spanish in an overpowering victory. Diego became the captain general and local governor in Vigan. On December 14, 1762, he proclaimed the independence of the Ilocos region. With that, he also began establishing a local government that would serve the masses, and not just the elite. But the Ilocos victory was short-lived. Agitated by their defeat, the Spaniards offered a large reward for the assassination of Diego Silang. At only 32 years old, he was eventually killed on May 1763 at the hands of his former friends and allies. While no doubt devastated, Gabriela had no time for grief. She knew that her husband would not have wanted her to spend her days in tears. Instead, she filled up her days by planning how to retaliate and reinvigorate the Ilocano revolutionary forces. At a time when women were expected to just be demure and submissive, Gabriela defied all societal expectations and became a military force to be reckoned with. She retreated to her mother's hometown in Abra and began rebuilding her army, made up of Ilocano fighters and Itneg warriors. She appointed 2 generals and assumed the role of commander-in-chief of the rebel troops. Under her command, the rebel army successfully overpowered the Spanish in the town of Santa, but the victory didn't last long. The Spanish retaliated with a force of 6,000 organized men. Gabriela and her troops, most of whom were more used to fighting in the mountains, became overwhelmed. But even after the Spaniards got a hold of Vigan once more, Gabriela never gave up. She reorganized over 2,000 Itneg and Ilocanos and marched towards Vigan, prepared to take back her hometown. In a blaze of righteous fury, her army set fire to all the houses of the principales and elites. But sadly, even with all of Gabriela's military wit and unrelenting courage, her troops once again became overpowered. Just like with her husband, Gabriela's former allies became the reason for her demise. With deadly attacks coming from all directions, Gabriela had no choice but to retreat. The Spaniards searched deep into the Abra hinterlands to capture Gabriela and her troops. Despite all her best efforts at hiding, eventually, she and 90 other fighters were found. All of them were publicly hanged, with the commander-in-chief being executed last. She was only 32 years old. Today, Gabriela Silang is immortalized as La Generala, a fierce heroine on horseback, marching headfirst into battle with a razor-sharp bolo in hand, her long dark hair flowing in the wind. While her leadership was brief, we continue to remember and celebrate Gabriela Silang for her accomplishments. Through the partnership of Gabriela and Diego Silang, the Philippines saw a successful local revolt that would soon evolve into a national fight for independence. The 1896 revolution is often the only one we learn about in school, but it did not just happen out of the blue. Over 300 years of brutal colonization, and we think the Filipinos never tried to break free before 1896? No. There were plenty of local revolts headed by legendary local leaders like Gabriela and Diego Silang that happened way before the Katipunan was born. These local revolts eventually paved the way for a national consciousness and revolution that would ultimately set the entire Philippines free from our colonial oppressors. Whenever anyone says that Filipinas should just be meek and submissive, show them a picture of Gabriela Silang. If she remained timid and demure, we wouldn't be able to enjoy our freedom today. What part of Gabriela Silang's story did you enjoy the most? Don't forget to tell us in the comment section down below. Like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell if you'd like to learn more with us. Thanks for watching!